the day Earth burned. The warships of the Calvari Empire descended from the darkness like mechanical gods. Their hulls gleamed with polished obsidian plating, each vessel large enough to blot out the sun over entire cities. For 6,000 years, the Calvari had swept across the galaxy, conquering 400 star systems and subjugating species too numerous to count. They had perfected the art of domination, and Earth was simply their next appointment. Empress Ilara watched from her throne aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign Eclipse as the blue planet rotated peacefully below. Her scaled fingers drummed against the armrest with practiced boredom. This primitive world had refused the Empire's terms, rejected the tribute demands, and somehow believed their crude nuclear weapons qualified as a deterrent. The arrogance of lesser species never ceased to amuse her. "Begin orbital cleansing," she commanded, her voice flat with disinterest. Around her, Calvari officers moved with efficient precision. They had performed this ritual countless times before. The mathematics were simple: destroy enough population centers to break their spirit, leave enough survivors to serve as laborers, and move to the next target. It was merely business. The first plasma lance struck São Paulo at dawn. General Maya Torres was drinking coffee in her apartment when the sky turned white. The windows exploded inward. The building lurched sideways. She had just enough time to dive under her reinforced desk before the shockwave tore through the city like the fist of an angry god. 23 million people vanished in that first second. The heat was so intense that concrete turned to vapor and steel became mist. Maya remained conscious through it all. She felt the building collapse around her, felt herself falling through floors that no longer existed, felt the crushing weight of debris pin her legs. The pain was distant, almost abstract. Her mind refused to process what was happening. This was supposed to be a negotiation. This was supposed to be a show of force. This was supposed to give them time to respond. The bombardment continued for 18 hours. Tokyo disappeared in a pillar of fire. Moscow became a crater of glass. Cairo, Berlin, Mumbai, Mexico City, the great monuments of human civilization were erased as casually as someone might clear marks from a board. Orbital strikes rained down with mechanical precision, each one calculated to maximize casualties while preserving basic infrastructure. The Calvari were efficient conquerors. They knew exactly how much destruction was required to break a species. By the time the bombardment ceased, 4 billion humans were dead. The survivors crawled from ruins that still glowed with residual heat. They searched for family members who no longer existed in any physical form. Children wandered through landscapes transformed into alien wastelands. The sky itself had changed color, filled with ash and particulate matter that would block the sun for months. Maya dug herself free after 11 hours. Her legs were crushed beyond repair, but she found a length of pipe to use as a crutch. She limped through what remained of São Paulo, searching for landmarks that no longer existed. Her daughter had been visiting the city center with her school class. Maya knew the truth, but she searched anyway. She searched until her hands bled and her voice gave out from calling names into the silence. The Calvari sent their message that evening. It appeared on every screen that still functioned, every radio frequency that still broadcast. An elderly Calvari official with crystalline eyes looked into the camera with the expression of someone discussing mildly unpleasant weather. "People of Earth, you have experienced the consequences of defiance. The Calvari Empire is not cruel, but we are absolute. Submit to our governance. Provide the resources we require. Your military forces will be dissolved. Your weapons will be surrendered. You have 48 hours to signal your compliance. Failure to do so will result in the complete sterilization of your planet. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Across Earth, the surviving leaders gathered through emergency communication networks that somehow still functioned. Presidents and generals, scientists and diplomats, those who remained met in bunkers carved deep beneath mountains and oceans. Many governments had been decapitated entirely. Others existed only as scattered fragments. But they all faced the same question that hung in the air like poison gas: what do we do now? The debates were fierce. Some argued for immediate surrender. They had witnessed the Calvari power firsthand. Resistance was suicide. At least submission offered survival for the species, even if that survival meant eternal slavery. Others pushed for negotiation, for appeals to galactic law, for some diplomatic solution that might spare Earth further destruction. Surely there were other alien species who would intervene. Surely there were rules even empires had to follow. Maya listened to the arguments from a medical station in the Andes Mountains. Medics had amputated her left leg below the knee and stabilized her crushed right leg with external fixators. She sat in a wheelchair, pumped full of painkillers that barely touched the agony radiating through her body. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the wound in her chest where her daughter's memory lived. When the council finally asked for her input, Maya's voice was steady despite everything. They did not come here to negotiate. They did not come here to teach us lessons or incorporate us into their empire as partners. They came here to break us completely. If we surrender now, we become slaves forever. Our children and their children will serve the creatures who murdered billions of us today. Is that survival? Is that a future worth accepting? She paused, letting her words sink into the silence. Every face on every screen was turned toward her. They think we are finished. They think we have no choice but to bow down or die. But they made a mistake. They did not verify their victory. They did not land troops to accept our surrender. They simply assumed their work was complete and left. That assumption is going to cost them everything. The vote that followed was not unanimous, but the majority was overwhelming. Earth would not surrender. Earth would not negotiate. Earth would hide, build, and prepare. And when humanity was ready, they would bring a reckoning that the Calvari Empire would never forget. The Calvari scouts returned 3 weeks later to assess the damage. They found a planet shrouded in darkness, its cities reduced to rubble, its communication network silent. A few scattered survivors broadcast desperate pleas for mercy that were recorded and filed away as evidence of successful subjugation. The scouts reported their findings to Empress Ilara, who marked Earth as conquered in the Imperial archives and moved her attention to the next target system. The blue planet had been dealt with. It was no longer worthy of consideration. This was the Calvari Empire's first and fatal mistake. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in bunkers and caves and repurposed mines, humanity began to build. The survivors shared resources without argument. Scientists who had spent careers competing now worked together without ego or hesitation. Engineers from nations that had been enemies for generations collaborated on designs that would have seemed impossible just months before. Soldiers trained in darkness, preparing for a war that might not come for years. General Maya Torres was promoted to Supreme Commander of the Earth Resistance Command. She directed operations from a facility carved into the bedrock beneath former Switzerland. The complex stretched for kilometers in every direction, a hidden city dedicated entirely to one purpose: revenge tempered with justice. Dr. James Chen, a physicist who had survived the Tokyo strike through sheer chance, led the science division. His team worked in laboratories hidden so deep that no scanner could detect them. They studied fragments of Calvari technology recovered from crashed scout ships. They reverse-engineered shield generators and weapons systems. They developed innovations the Calvari had never considered because their dominance had made them intellectually lazy. Their technology is impressive, Chen reported to Maya during one of their weekly briefings. But it is also stagnant. They have not innovated in centuries because they have never needed to. Every system we examine, we find ways to improve. Their plasma weapons are powerful but predictable. Their shields are strong but inflexible. Their ships are fast but follow standard navigation patterns. We can beat them, Maya. We just need time. Time was the resource they had in abundance. The galaxy believed Earth was dead. No one was watching. No one was monitoring. Humanity worked in complete secrecy, and with every month that passed, their capabilities grew. 3 years after the bombardment, the first human warship achieved successful orbital trials. They called it the Retribution, and it was unlike anything the Calvari had ever built. Where Calvari vessels prioritized intimidation and elegance, human ships prioritized function and efficiency. Every angle served a purpose. Every system was redundant. They were not beautiful, but they were deadly. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded the Retribution during its shakedown cruise. She had been a commercial pilot before the war, flying cargo between Earth and Mars. Now she commanded a vessel equipped with weapons that could crack a moon in half. All systems optimal, she reported as the ship completed its first faster-than-light jump. Quantum drive functioning beyond specifications. We are ready for combat operations. By the end of the 3rd year, Earth had produced 200 warships. They hid behind planets and asteroids, invisible to casual scans. Crews trained constantly, running combat simulations against Calvari tactics. They studied every battle the Empire had ever fought, learning from victories and defeats that had occurred across thousands of years. Maya addressed the fleet commanders from her office deep underground. Her prosthetic leg had replaced the amputated limb, and she had learned to walk without assistance. But she never forgot the pain. She never forgot her daughter's face. These memories fueled her determination every single day. We are almost ready, she told them. Our ships are superior. Our weapons are more advanced. Our people are motivated in ways the Calvari cannot understand. But before we strike, I need you all to remember something crucial. We are not becoming like them. We are not going to murder civilians. We are not going to inflict terror on innocent people. We fight military targets. We destroy their capacity to wage war. We show the galaxy that humanity is better than the empire that tried to exterminate us. Do you understand? The commanders understood. They had all lost people they loved. They all carried the same burning desire for revenge. But Maya's words reminded them of who they were and who they refused to become. They would not win this war by abandoning their humanity. They would win by embracing it completely. The final piece fell into place when Chen's team successfully developed a quantum communication system that could not be intercepted. Every human ship could now coordinate in real time across vast distances. The Calvari had nothing comparable. Their communication relied on relay stations that could be disrupted or destroyed. "We have everything we need," Chen reported during the final planning session. "Better ships, better weapons, better coordination. The only question remaining is when we strike." Maya looked at the holographic display showing the positions of Calvari fleets across known space. The Empire was spread thin, confident in their supremacy, unprepared for a threat from a world they believed was dead. She thought about her daughter. She thought about the 4 billion dead. She thought about the choice she was about to make that would change the galaxy forever. "We strike in 30 days, she said quietly. "Send word to all commanders. The age of Calvari dominance ends now. Humanity is going to war." The Empire's reckoning. The human fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the Calvari border zone like ghosts materializing from nightmares. 200 warships hung in the darkness, their hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. They had traveled in complete silence, using routes that avoided every known patrol and sensor grid. For 3 years, the Calvari Empire had believed Earth was a graveyard. Now that graveyard had sent its dead to collect payment. General Maya Torres stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution, her hands clasped behind her back. Through the viewport, she could see the scattered lights of Calvari border stations, completely unaware of the armada that had arrived in their space. Her prosthetic leg hummed softly with each small adjustment of her stance. The sound reminded her constantly of what had been taken, what could never be recovered. "Open a direct channel to the Imperial Palace on Calvan Prime," she ordered. Her communications officer, a young woman named Lieutenant Zhao who had lost her entire family in the Beijing strike, worked quickly at her console. Within moments, the connection was established. Maya had specifically requested this channel, bypassing all military protocols. She wanted to speak directly to the creature who had ordered Earth's destruction. Empress Zilara was in her private chambers when the message arrived. Her advisors burst in with panic written across their scaled faces. "Your Majesty, there is an unauthorized transmission demanding your immediate attention. The source claims to be from Earth." Zilara's eyes narrowed. Earth. That worthless rock they had cleansed 3 years ago. Some survivor had apparently acquired a communication device and wanted to beg for mercy or perhaps hurl meaningless insults. She almost dismissed it entirely, but curiosity won out. "Put it through. Let us see what this primitive has to say." The holographic projection materialized in the center of the chamber. Maya's image appeared life-sized, wearing a simple gray military uniform with no decorations except for a single patch on her shoulder showing Earth from space. Her face bore scars from the bombardment, and her eyes held something that made even Zilara uncomfortable, a complete absence of fear. "I am General Maya Torres of the Earth Resistance Command," Maya began, her voice calm and measured. 3 years ago, your forces murdered 4 billion human beings. You destroyed our cities, burned our world, and left us for dead. You did this without warning, without mercy, and without justification beyond your own arrogance." Zilara's advisors began to speak, but she silenced them with a gesture. Something about this human's demeanor was wrong. This was not a survivor begging for scraps. This was something else entirely. "You have one opportunity to avoid what is coming," Maya continued. "Surrender yourself immediately to stand trial for genocide. Order all Calvari military forces to stand down. If you do this, the war ends before it truly begins. Your people will not suffer for your crimes. Your empire will be dismantled peacefully, and you will face justice under galactic law." The chamber erupted in outrage. Advisors shouted about the insult, the audacity, the sheer impossibility of what this primitive was suggesting. But Zilara merely smiled, a cold expression that showed rows of crystalline teeth. "You threaten the Calvari Empire with what, exactly? Your world is ashes. Your species is scattered. You have nothing." Maya's expression did not change. "I have 200 warships equipped with weapons your scientists cannot comprehend. I have 15,000 crew members who have spent 3 years preparing for this moment. I have quantum drives that make your fastest ships look stationary. And I have 4 billion reasons to ensure you pay for what you did." She paused. "This is the only warning you will receive. Surrender now, or face the consequences." Zilara laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. "You are bluffing. Even if you somehow constructed ships, they would be primitive toys compared to our fleets. We have 6,000 vessels. We have conquered 400 worlds. We have never been defeated in 6 millennia of expansion. She leaned forward. Destroy her communication source. Send the Third Fleet to investigate this delusion. If any humans have survived, finish the cleansing we should have completed 3 years ago. As you wish, Maya said softly. Remember this conversation, Empress. Remember that I offered you mercy. Remember that you refused. The transmission ended. Admiral Korvax commanded the Calvari Third Fleet, a force of 300 warships stationed near the border zones. He was a decorated officer who had participated in 40 successful conquest campaigns. When he received orders to investigate and destroy a supposed human fleet, he laughed openly on his command deck. Humans? The primitives we exterminated? This is what passes for intelligence now. His officers shared his amusement. They discussed how they would handle the situation over casual drinks, placing bets on whether they would even find any ships or just a single desperate survivor broadcasting empty threats. The Third Fleet moved toward the coordinates where the human transmission had originated, expecting to find nothing of consequence. They found the entire human fleet waiting for them. The Battle of Centauri Gate lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, Admiral Korvax was dead, his flagship split in half by a kinetic round that had punched through his shields as if they did not exist. Of his 300 ships, only 43 survived, and those only because they managed to jump away before the human vessels could target them. The Calvari had never experienced anything like it. Human ships moved with impossible speed, appearing and disappearing through quantum jumps that happened in microseconds. Their weapons fired projectiles at relativistic speeds that shields were never designed to stop. Their tactics were chaotic and unpredictable, with no standard formations or patterns to analyze. Captain Sarah Mitchell commanded the human destroyer Vengeance during the battle. She watched her tactical display with fierce satisfaction as Calvari's ships exploded under the coordinated assault. Target the command vessel, she ordered. Kinetic rounds, full spread. Let them understand what it feels like to be helpless. But even in the midst of destruction, the human fleet followed Maya's strict orders. When Calvari escape pods launched from dying ships, human vessels did not fire on them. When damaged ships broadcast surrender signals, they were taken as prisoners rather than executed. The humans fought with overwhelming force but also with discipline and purpose. News of the disaster reached Empress Zilara within hours. She stared at the casualty reports with growing horror. 257 ships destroyed. Thousands of her people dead. And the human fleet had suffered minimal losses, only 6 ships damaged, none destroyed. It was impossible. It defied everything the Empire knew about warfare and technology. How, she demanded of her military advisors. How did primitives develop such capabilities? Where did they acquire these weapons? Who helped them? The answer was worse than she imagined. Your Majesty, preliminary analysis suggests the humans developed everything themselves. They reverse-engineered our technology from captured scouts, then improved upon it. Their quantum drives are 2 generations ahead of ours. Their weapons utilize principles our scientists never considered. They did not have help. They simply learned. Zilara felt something she had not experienced in decades: fear. The Calvari Empire had ruled through overwhelming force for 6,000 years. They had never faced an enemy that could match them technologically. They had certainly never faced an enemy that could exceed them. And now a species they had tried to exterminate was demonstrating superiority in every category that mattered. Send the 1st, 2nd, 4th, and 5th fleets, she ordered. 2,000 ships. Crush them with numbers if nothing else works. I want every human vessel destroyed and every survivor executed. This ends now. But the human fleet did not wait for the Calvari response. They struck next at the Empire's economic infrastructure, targeting mining operations and manufacturing facilities across a dozen systems. They destroyed supply convoys, communication relays, and shipyard facilities. Each strike was precise and devastating. And each time, when they encountered civilian vessels or non-military personnel, they provided safe passage rather than death. A Calvari merchant captain named Thelos found himself facing a human warship after his convoy was intercepted. He broadcast his surrender immediately, expecting execution. Instead, a human voice came over his communication system, speaking flawless Calvari. You are free to go. We have no quarrel with civilians. But tell your leaders what you saw here today. Tell them that humanity remembers mercy, even when mercy was not shown to us. Thelos escaped unharmed, his ship and crew intact. When he reported the encounter, other Calvari civilians began to realize something crucial: the humans were not monsters. They were not inflicting the same terror the Empire had used for millennia. They were fighting a war, but they were fighting it with rules and honor that the Calvari military had long abandoned. The massive Calvari fleet assembled near the Imperial home system, 2,000 warships gathered to crush the human threat once and for all. But human intelligence networks had intercepted every communication, decoded every order. Maya knew exactly where they would be and exactly when they would arrive. "We do not meet them in open battle," she told her fleet commanders during the strategic briefing. "We do not play to their strengths. We hit their supply lines. We destroy their fuel depots. We force them to spread out searching for us, and then we eliminate them in small groups. We fight smart, not proud." The campaign that followed lasted 6 weeks. The Great Calvari Armada never found the human fleet as a cohesive force. Instead, they were picked apart piece by piece. A squadron would jump to investigate a distress signal and find themselves ambushed by human destroyers. A supply convoy would be destroyed, forcing ships to return to base for refueling. Communication breakdowns led to confusion and friendly fire incidents. By the time the Calvari commanders realized they were being systematically dismantled, they had lost 800 ships. The survivors retreated to the home system in disarray, their morale shattered and their confidence broken. Maya stood on the bridge of the Retribution as her fleet emerged at the edge of the Calvon system. Before them lay the Calvari homeworld, a planet of crystalline cities and vast oceans that had never known the touch of war. Around it orbited defense stations and the remnants of the Imperial fleet, perhaps 400 ships still combat-capable. "Open a channel to Empress Zilara," Maya ordered. This time, the response was immediate. The Empress appeared on the viewscreen, and Maya could see the change in her. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something approaching desperation. "General Torres," Zilara began, her voice carefully controlled. "Perhaps we can discuss terms. A negotiated settlement that benefits both our species. The Empire is willing to offer reparations, territory, and—" "No," Maya interrupted. "You do not get to negotiate. 3 years ago, I was drinking coffee in my apartment when your ships turned my city into glass. My daughter was 12 years old. She died with 23 million other people in the first second of your bombardment. 4 billion humans died that day, Empress. 4 billion lives erased because we dared to say no to your tribute demands." She stepped closer to the pickup, her scarred face filling the screen. "You will surrender unconditionally. Every member of your military command will stand trial for genocide. Your empire will be dismantled. Your technology will be shared with every species you have subjugated. Your ships will be decommissioned. And you will spend whatever remains of your life in a cell, remembering what happens to those who believe might makes right." Zilara's composure finally cracked. "And if I refuse? If I order my remaining ships to fight? You may destroy us, but you will lose ships, lose people. Is that worth it?" Maya's expression softened slightly, showing not mercy but profound sadness. "Every death in this war has been worth it to ensure that what you did to Earth never happens to another world. But I am going to give you something you never gave us, a choice. Surrender now, and your civilians live. Your planet remains intact. Your species continues, just without the empire you built on the bones of others. Refuse, and we will do what we must. But know that even then, we will not target your cities. We will not murder your children. Because we are not you." The transmission ended. For 3 hours, Maya waited. Her fleet maintained position, weapons ready but not firing. Every captain understood that this moment would define humanity's future in the galaxy. They could become conquerors themselves, or they could prove that there was another way. Finally, the response came. Empress Zilara appeared on screen, her posture defeated. "The Calvari Empire surrenders unconditionally. I will submit to your tribunal. I order all military forces to stand down immediately. Please, no more death." Maya nodded slowly. "Captain Mitchell, coordinate with their defense forces to ensure a peaceful transition. Dr. Chen, begin organizing the war crimes investigation. Lieutenant Zhao, send messages to all subjugated species. Tell them the Calvari Empire has fallen. Tell them humanity offers partnership, not domination." As orders were carried out around her, Maya returned to her private quarters. She sat in the darkness, finally allowing herself to feel the weight of 3 years of war. They had won. Earth had survived and transformed its near extinction into victory. But the cost had been enormous, and the responsibility of what came next rested heavily on her shoulders. She pulled out a photograph of her daughter, one of the few personal items she had carried throughout the campaign. "We did it, mi amor," she whispered. "We made them pay. But more than that, we showed the galaxy that humans are better than our worst moments. We showed them that even after losing everything, we can choose to be something other than monsters." Outside, the human fleet maintained position around Calvon Prime. They were no longer the victims of genocide. They were no longer the forgotten species from a dead world. They were humanity, and the galaxy would never underestimate them again. 3 months later, the Galactic Council convened for the first time in a generation. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the unprecedented situation. A species that had nearly been exterminated had risen to defeat the galaxy's dominant military power. The question everyone asked was simple: what would humanity do with its newfound strength? General Maya Torres addressed the council from Earth, which was slowly being rebuilt under massive reconstruction efforts. We did not fight this war to replace one empire with another. We fought because we had no choice. We fought to survive, and we fought to ensure that what happened to us never happens to anyone else. She paused, looking at the assembled representatives. Humanity seeks partnership in the galaxy, not dominance. We offer our technology freely to all who wish to defend themselves against aggression. We offer our assistance in rebuilding worlds the Calvari destroyed. And we offer a simple warning: Earth remembers. We will never again allow genocide to go unanswered. This is our promise and our purpose. The response was overwhelming. Species that had suffered under Calvari rule for centuries pledged alliance with humanity. Others, wary of any military power, watched cautiously but with growing respect. Earth had proven something that had been forgotten in 6,000 years of Calvari dominance: that victims could become victors without becoming villains. Maya retired from military service 1 year after the war ended. She returned to what remained of Sao Paulo, where reconstruction crews were rebuilding the city from its foundations. She walked through streets that were slowly coming back to life, past buildings rising where ash had settled, past parks where children played again. A young reporter approached her one day, asking for an interview about the war. "General Torres, what do you want people to remember about what happened? What is the lesson of Earth's survival?" Maya thought for a long moment, her hand unconsciously touching the prosthetic leg hidden beneath her pants. "Remember that cruelty is a choice. The Calvari chose to try to exterminate us. We chose to fight back, but we also chose not to become like them. That second choice was harder than the first." She looked at the rebuilt city around her. "Remember that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or our technology. It is our ability to suffer terrible losses and still choose compassion. It is our ability to face extinction and still believe in something better. That is what survived the bombardment. That is what won the war. And that is what will carry us forward into whatever comes next." The interview ended, but her words spread across Earth and beyond. They became a foundation for humanity's new place in the galaxy, a reminder of who they had been and who they chose to remain. Years later, in a secure facility where war crimes trials continued, Empress Zilara received a visitor. Maya Torres walked slowly into the cell, her prosthetic clicking softly against the floor. The two women studied each other across the small space. "Why did you come?" Zilara asked finally. "To gloat? To see me broken?" "No," Maya said quietly. "I came because I needed to understand. Why did you do it? Why did you order the death of 4 billion people who had done nothing to threaten you?" Zilara was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was weary. "Because we could. Because we had always done so and never faced consequences. Because your resistance seemed like an insult that needed to be punished." She looked up, meeting Maya's eyes. "Because we forgot that every species believes they are the center of the universe. We forgot that cruelty breeds resistance, and that every empire eventually faces the enemies it creates." Maya nodded slowly. "I hope you live a very long time, Empress. I hope you have decades to think about what you did and what it cost. Not just for Earth, but for your own people. Your empire is gone. Your civilization will be remembered as a cautionary tale. All because you could not imagine that the weak might become strong, or that the victims might demand justice." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "My daughter's name was Isabella. She wanted to be a doctor. She liked painting and terrible pop music, and she made me laugh every single day. You killed her. You killed 4 billion people just like her. I want you to remember that. I want you to remember that every life you took was someone's daughter, someone's son, someone's beloved. That is your sentence, Empress. Not this cell, but the memory of what you destroyed." Maya walked out, leaving Zilara alone with the weight of 4 billion ghosts. Outside, the galaxy continued its slow transformation. New alliances formed. Old grievances were addressed. And on Earth, humanity rebuilt not just their cities but their future, carrying forward the memory of what they had lost and the pride of what they had become. The age of easy conquest was over. The galaxy had learned that victims could become victors, that the dead could rise to demand justice, and that humanity, when pushed to the edge of extinction, would not simply fade away. They would fight back. They would win. And most importantly, they would do so without losing themselves in the process. This was Earth's gift to the galaxy, proof that strength and compassion were not opposites, that survival and morality could coexist, and that the most powerful weapon any species possessed was the choice to remain humane even in the face of inhuman cruelty. The stars would remember.